A lab in Nanjing just pushed a wireless signal through open air fast enough to pull down every movie on Netflix in under 10 seconds. No cable, no fiber line, just air at 206 gigabits per second. For scale, the 5G connection on your phone tops out around 300 megabits per second on its best day, when conditions line up perfectly. What this research team achieved runs roughly 100 times beyond that, transmitted through the exact same air surrounding you right now, at this very moment, wherever you happen to be sitting. What's actually rattling governments worldwide isn't the raw speed number itself, impressive as it sounds. It's the chip that made it possible. A piece of hardware smaller than your thumbnail, capable of something no other chip on Earth can currently replicate. I'll break down precisely what that chip does and why it's significant. But first, you need to grasp the underlying problem it was engineered to solve, because that problem shapes your daily life more than you'd expect, in ways you've probably never stopped to consider. If you want to understand what's unfolding here and why it could determine who controls the technology running your world for the next several decades, tap like and subscribe. This story is moving quickly and easy to miss entirely if you're not paying attention. Your smartphone, your vehicle, the equipment inside your doctor's office, the factory manufacturing your prescriptions. Every one of these depends on wireless networks functioning properly behind the scenes. Here's something rarely discussed openly. Each time wireless technology jumps to a new generation, it doesn't just speed up your phone marginally. It fundamentally redistributes economic and political power across the globe in ways nobody fully anticipates beforehand. The leap from 3G to 4G birthed Uber, birthed Instagram, and constructed a $400 billion app economy that didn't exist 12 months prior to that transition. Nobody predicted it happening that way. Nobody engineered that outcome deliberately from the start. Faster wireless simply unlocked doors that were previously sealed shut entirely. 5G was supposed to replicate that transformation for autonomous vehicles, remote surgical procedures, and fully automated factories running with minimal human oversight. It hasn't delivered on that promise in any meaningful way for most consumers. And the reason behind that shortfall is precisely what makes China's latest achievement so consequential for the rest of the planet watching closely. Here's the wireless problem nobody breaks down in accessible terms, though it's remarkably straightforward once explained properly and stripped of technical jargon. A wireless signal is simply a wave traveling through air. Nothing more mysterious than that. Some vibrate slowly, others vibrate rapidly. And that single characteristic dictates nearly everything about what the signal can and cannot accomplish in practice. Slow-moving waves are resilient by nature. They travel considerable distances, penetrate walls without much difficulty, and hold steady through rainfall and bad weather. That explains why AM radio can reach listeners from 100 miles out, sometimes further under the right conditions. Your grandfather could tune into a ball game broadcast from 3 states away, arriving faint and static-filled, but arriving nonetheless through sheer persistence. The downside is severely limited data capacity. Picture yelling across an entire football field at someone. Your voice covers the distance easily enough, but you're limited to just a handful of words at a time before your message gets lost. Fast-moving waves flip that entire equation on its head. They pack enormous data volumes because rapid vibration allows each individual cycle to encode a fresh piece of information. Their weakness is fragility, plain and simple. They get blocked easily by walls, scattered by precipitation, and fade out within remarkably short ranges. Think of it as whispering an elaborate, detailed secret to someone standing nearby. You can convey substantial detail and nuance, but only if the listener stands directly beside you, practically touching. That fundamental compromise, choosing between reach or velocity, has defined wireless communication since humanity first attempted transmitting signals through open air over a century ago. And it explains precisely why 5G underwhelmed so many everyday users, despite all the marketing hype. The flashy version showcased in commercials relied on ultra-fast waves, theoretically capable of blazing speeds under ideal conditions. On paper, it looked spectacular, genuinely revolutionary even. In practice, those particular signals struggled covering even 2 city blocks reliably. A single tree blocked them entirely without much resistance. Window glass weakened them substantially as they passed through. Simply gripping your phone in your hand could disrupt reception noticeably. Consequently, most everyday 5G usage actually runs on waves nearly identical to older 4G infrastructure, just marginally refined and optimized. Real-world speeds typically land somewhere between 200 and 500 megabits per second. An improvement over a decade ago, certainly, but nowhere near what marketing departments promised consumers. Stated differently, you're paying premium prices every month for 5G service. Your screen proudly displays that label in the corner, yet you're mostly experiencing a modestly upgraded 4G connection, dressed up with new branding. The label shifted dramatically. The actual lived experience barely budged for most people. This isn't strictly a technology failure either, to be fair. The blazing fast version of 5G only performs adequately when you're standing practically beneath the transmission tower itself, with zero obstructions blocking the signal path. That's simply not how ordinary people actually use smartphones throughout their daily lives, moving between rooms and buildings constantly. This extends well beyond streaming speeds or download times too, into territory that actually matters for infrastructure. 5G was meant to enable autonomous vehicles communicating instantaneously with each other on busy highways, enable surgeons in New York remotely operating robotic instruments inside distant hospitals hundreds of miles away, transform entire factories into wirelessly synchronized operations, running without delay. Those particular applications demand speeds reaching tens of gigabits per second, alongside response times measured in mere fractions of a millisecond. Standard 5G falls drastically short of those stringent requirements, missing the mark by a wide margin. Consider the sheer scale of investment involved here, because it's genuinely staggering. By late 2025, China had constructed 4.5 million 5G towers nationwide, surpassing every other nation on the planet combined, by a considerable margin. Over 1 billion Chinese citizens maintained active 5G connectivity across their devices. Despite this absolutely massive infrastructure investment poured into the ground, actual experienced speeds remained a fraction of theoretical potential promised on paper. The hardware existed everywhere. Fundamental physics still imposed stubborn limitations regardless of spending. That's precisely when Chinese researchers abandoned incremental 5G improvements altogether and posed an entirely different question. Instead of tweaking the existing system further, what if these inherent limitations could be bypassed completely by harnessing the absolute fastest wireless frequencies available anywhere in the spectrum? Frequencies so extreme that nobody throughout recorded history had successfully utilized them for practical everyday communication. These particular frequencies occupy something called the terahertz spectrum specifically. Remember that term closely, it becomes central to everything discussed moving forward through the rest of this story. Understanding why terahertz frequencies seemed permanently unusable for decades transforms how you'll perceive this breakthrough entirely. Terahertz waves theoretically carry staggering data volumes, dwarfing anything current 5G technology accomplishes by orders of magnitude. Yet they're remarkably delicate and finicky in practice. Airborne moisture destroys them almost instantly upon contact. Walls block them completely without exception. Even mild afternoon humidity degrades signal integrity substantially within seconds. For decades, researchers dubbed this frequency range the terahertz gap, acknowledging enormous untapped potential, sitting right there alongside complete inability to actually harness it practically for real use. Comparable to owning a vehicle theoretically capable of 1,000 miles per hour that disintegrates completely upon touching pavement for the first time. That gap persisted stubbornly for decades, tantalizing engineers who recognized the available data capacity while lacking any method to actually capture and control it reliably. Research teams throughout America, Japan, and Europe each attempted their own solutions independently and ultimately failed to crack the problem. The waves proved excessively fragile under real conditions, and necessary control hardware simply didn't exist yet anywhere. This wasn't merely a shortage of ambition or funding poured into the problem. Rather, a real dead end imposed directly by fundamental physics itself. Compounding matters further, a second complication made everything considerably harder to solve simultaneously. Every wireless system ever constructed processes signals through electronic circuitry exclusively. Envision these circuits functioning like an urban road network, where each individual signal resembles a vehicle traveling between different destinations across town. Complication arises because different signal types require entirely separate infrastructure to function properly. Low-frequency signals need particular specialized hardware. Mid-frequency signals need entirely different equipment altogether. High-frequency signals need yet another configuration entirely on top of that. A standard 5G tower essentially stacks all these separate components together in one location, each managing one specific signal category exclusively, each requiring dedicated amplifiers, filters, and antennas of its own. Functional certainly, but expensive to build, complex to maintain, and physically cumbersome to deploy at scale. Now for the actual breakthrough itself, the element generating either real excitement or real alarm among engineers globally, depending entirely on national allegiance and competitive position. Researchers at Peking University, alongside City University of Hong Kong, devised a method eliminating all those separate hardware components entirely at once, consolidating everything down into one unified chip instead. Their underlying technique proves remarkably ingenious upon closer inspection. Rather than processing signals electronically like every previous wireless system throughout history has done, their chip converts wireless signals into light first, processes that light directly using optical methods, then converts it back into wireless transmission afterward. This proves revolutionary precisely because light remains completely indifferent regarding its original signal type or frequency. A single light beam accommodates low-frequency signals, mid-frequency signals, high-frequency signals, even terahertz signals, all handled identically without distinction. Instead of requiring 10 distinct pathways for 10 different signal categories running in parallel, everything simply converts into light and travels through one unified channel together. This particular chip measures 11 millimeters in length, under 2 millimeters wide, smaller than a standard pencil eraser you'd find in any desk drawer, yet manages 9 distinct frequency bands simultaneously on a single silicon wafer. That translates directly to 9 separate hardware modules, currently cluttering 5G towers everywhere, becoming replaceable by one chip small enough to balance atop your fingertip comfortably. Practically speaking, if a single chip replaces entire equipment racks worth of hardware, constructing wireless infrastructure becomes dramatically cheaper overall, more compact physically, and considerably faster to deploy at scale nationwide. Rooftop antennas once requiring closet-sized equipment rooms packed with gear could operate from something shoebox-sized instead. Scale that reduction across millions of towers globally, and this transforms from purely scientific curiosity into substantial economic transformation, affecting entire industries. Another dimension deserves attention here too, one that's easy to overlook initially. If a single chip manages every frequency band simultaneously, terahertz included in that mix, choosing between coverage range and transmission speed becomes entirely unnecessary going forward. That word resurfaces yet again in this story. This chip enables systems utilizing slower waves for broad coverage alongside rapid terahertz waves for speed, operating simultaneously through identical hardware infrastructure. The fundamental trade-off governing wireless communication throughout its entire history, described moments earlier, In detail, simply stops functioning as a limiting constraint on design choices. When researchers published their findings within Nature Journal during September 2025, their chip achieved 100 gigabits per second across a single channel, sufficient for downloading 2 complete 4K films within 1 single second, while switching between different frequency bands in under 200 microseconds, faster than a hummingbird completing just 1 wingbeat cycle. Remarkably, this represented merely half of the overall story unfolding. Recall terahertz, the term I emphasized earlier for good reason? Here's its dramatic return to center stage. An entirely separate research team operating out of Purple Mountain Laboratories in Nanjing, collaborating alongside China Mobile and Fudan University researchers, harnessed those previously abandoned terahertz frequencies to push a wireless signal through ordinary open air reaching 206.25 gigabits per second. This wasn't theoretical projection or estimated calculation done on paper somewhere. This constituted actual measured performance under real conditions, independently verified afterward and publicly documented for scrutiny. Roughly 20 times faster than whatever 5G connection your phone currently maintains today. Accomplished wirelessly through standard atmospheric conditions utilizing exactly those frequencies. The broader scientific world had already dismissed as impractical years earlier. Combining both developments together reveals precisely why the global reaction proved so significant afterward. One team engineered a chip replacing entire tower infrastructures with something fingernail-sized and portable. Another team demonstrated the fastest theoretical wireless frequencies actually functioning reliably under real-world conditions outdoors. Both teams operate within identical national borders, a nation already possessing more wireless infrastructure in the ground than anywhere else worldwide by a wide margin. Timeline considerations matter substantially here too, showing this wasn't accidental. Researchers established the terahertz speed record back in 2022 initially. The chip itself appeared within Nature during 2025, 3 years later. The operational citywide network launched during early 2026, following immediately after. These aren't disconnected laboratory experiments occurring randomly without coordination, rather sequential steps within a coordinated national progression, with momentum continuously building year over year. Subsequent developments confirmed this technology wouldn't remain laboratory confined for long. On April 21, 2026, China revealed its inaugural pre-6G network operational within Nanjing city itself, not confined to laboratory settings or controlled testing environments behind closed doors, but distributed across urban infrastructure through 10 base stations transmitting actual data across real city streets. Development teams reported speeds reaching 10 times current 5G performance, under legitimate real-world circumstances, not curated demonstrations. This network already supported applications sounding distinctly futuristic on paper, including drone systems streaming live footage without perceptible delay whatsoever, factory robotics receiving wireless commands, matching physical cable transmission speeds exactly, plus holographic communications, transmitting live three-dimensional representations of individuals in real time. None of this represents distant future aspirations sitting on a roadmap somewhere. This currently operates within a network pedestrians could physically walk beneath while visiting Nanjing today, right now. Supporting this ambitious launch involved $485 million in dedicated financial commitment from the government, positioned centrally within China's broader national strategic framework. Spanning 2026 through 2030, treating 6G development as an absolute paramount priority, alongside artificial intelligence and quantum computing advancement. Nanjing now proudly identifies itself as Earth's inaugural 6G city, backed publicly by industry giants, including Huawei, Qualcomm, China Mobile, and Ericsson working together. This particular moment triggered rapid mobilization across other major nations watching from the sidelines. South Korea, previously the global leader establishing operational 5G infrastructure years earlier, committed $2.2 billion toward domestic 6G development immediately, targeting real pilot programs by 2028 at the latest. Samsung, alongside LG, both initiated independent terahertz testing initiatives of their own, that same word appearing yet again within another nation's research facilities. Japan and the United States collaborated together on a $4.5 billion joint 6G development initiative, a partnership largely motivated by growing concerns regarding falling behind China competitively in this space. The European Union allocated exceeding €100 million toward various 6G research projects distributed throughout the continent broadly. Aggregating all these separate investments together, total worldwide 6G research spending by early 2026 exceeded $20 billion collectively, with China, South Korea, and the United States collectively representing roughly 3/4 of total global expenditure on this technology. When numerous nations commit such substantial funding this rapidly and simultaneously, they're responding to observable, verifiable reality rather than speculative possibility or hype. Nokia, historically among wireless technology's founding corporate giants, publicly acknowledged wireless research's center of gravity shifting decisively eastward. Ericsson projected during late 2025 that commercial 6G networks would likely launch approximately around 2030, with China probably achieving first deployment ahead of competitors. The international regulatory body establishing technical standards governing every phone worldwide already established 2028 as their firm 6G specification deadline. This competition isn't approaching sometime later. It's actively underway right now, with participants starting from dramatically different competitive positions entering the race. Here's what matters even beyond the raw financial investment figures themselves. Within rooms where global wireless standards actually get negotiated, where nations determine which technologies every phone and tower worldwide must ultimately follow going forward, China currently controls approximately 40% of all filed 6G patents globally. This exceeds the combined totals from the United States, Japan, Europe, and South Korea added together. Practically speaking, whoever writes 6G's foundational rules gains disproportionate influence over everyone else combined into one block. And whichever nation authors those governing rules doesn't merely lead technologically speaking. They determine access terms and usage conditions for absolutely everyone else globally. Here's tangible proof this extends well beyond conference presentations and promotional press announcements into concrete reality. Nanjing's network has operated continuously since April 2026, within urban conditions, complete with authentic weather patterns, actual buildings, and real signal interference from everyday life. China's government confirmed completing their initial 6G technology trial phase, spanning 2022 through 2024 already, generating over 300 independently verified technologies during that period. Their second trial phase currently continues as we speak, while their third phase, addressing pre-commercial equipment deployment specifically, commences during 2027 next. This mirrors the identical systematic approach China previously employed, constructing the world's largest 5G network within under 5 years total, start to finish. I won't pretend obstacles don't exist here, because legitimate concerns deserve honest, transparent acknowledgement rather than dismissal. Terahertz signals cannot penetrate walls whatsoever. They struggle significantly with humidity in the air. Achieving complete urban coverage would require transmitters positioned across nearly every single building, rather than merely every city block, generating substantial ongoing electricity expenses running constantly. Additionally, Huawei already faces outright bans from 5G infrastructure throughout the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia over security concerns raised by governments. Tensions likely intensifying further as 6G grows increasingly critical to national infrastructure. Nations adopting Chinese 6G technology receive access to cutting-edge equipment, while simultaneously becoming dependent upon Chinese supply chains long-term, whereas nations rejecting this technology outright risk falling progressively further behind competitors. Every single nation worldwide eventually faces this difficult decision one way or another. One additional complication receives insufficient discussion in most coverage. Developing 6G demands professionals simultaneously understanding wireless engineering, artificial intelligence, materials science, and advanced manufacturing processes all together. China has publicly acknowledged insufficient personnel possessing this combined, specialized expertise. A shortage shared universally elsewhere, too, across every competing nation. 6G doesn't represent a singular academic discipline, but rather a dozen intersecting fields simultaneously converging together. And remarkably few individuals worldwide possess real competency, spanning all of them at once. None of these legitimate obstacles diminish what the underlying science has already conclusively demonstrated works. They simply establish realistic timelines for transitioning from functional prototypes toward networks actually serving billions of everyday users reliably. Every preceding wireless generation confronted comparable gaps historically, and eventually overcame them successfully through sustained effort. Here's the broader perspective worth contemplating as we wrap up. Every wireless generation throughout history has quietly redistributed global power dynamics behind the scenes. 2G empowered Europe initially, since that particular standard originated there first, with Nokia and Ericsson constructing infrastructure everyone depended upon afterward. 3G shifted influence toward America next, since American companies manufactured the smartphones people actually wanted. 4G solidified American dominance further, since the entire application economy emerged specifically from Silicon Valley itself. 5G was expected to continue that established pattern, yet China constructed more wireless towers within 3 years than the entire Western world combined managed, marking the first real power shift in decades. Regarding 6G specifically, China isn't merely pursuing fastest network status for bragging rights. They're simultaneously pursuing patent control, chip manufacturing dominance, and standards authorship all together at once. Success here means the rules governing your phone's functionality, your nation's required network equipment, and payment structures whenever this technology gets utilized commercially will originate directly from Beijing going forward. During 2027, the World Radio Communication Conference will allocate global spectrum exceeding 100 gigahertz, precisely where terahertz technology resides physically. Nations arriving at that negotiating table with demonstrated results will shape these regulations for decades ahead, while nations arriving merely with presentations and promises will simply observe helplessly from the sidelines. This isn't speculation or distant prediction. Rather, the direction current evidence unmistakably points toward already. China controls 40% of global 6G patents currently, maintains 4.5 million existing 5G towers as foundational infrastructure already built, operates a live pre-6G network within urban environments right now, and has committed $500 million specifically toward commercializing 6G technology. No other nation worldwide currently possesses all four of those critical advantages simultaneously combined. The 4G-powered world never formally announced its own conclusion or decline. It simply began ceding ground gradually towards something faster, constructed by people willing to invest substantial resources and accept real risk, while everyone else remained uncertain whether to even begin competing seriously. That's unfolding right now, currently. And this time, the epicenter isn't Silicon Valley anymore. It's Nanjing instead, residing within a chip roughly fingernail-sized that speaks every wireless language humanity has ever invented throughout its history. If this video revealed something previously unknown to you, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss upcoming content covering similar breakthroughs. Here's what I want to know from you specifically. China constructed the world's largest 5G network within under 5 years total, and already tests 6G openly, while the United States and Europe continue debating spectrum allocation strategies internally. If whoever builds the network first ultimately writes the governing rules for everyone, What happens to nations arriving late to this particular race? Share your thoughts down in the comments below.